What's going on, boxing fans? Julian Williams here with the Distance. Got another fantasy matchup for you guys. This one has been requested quite a bit. I haven't gotten a chance to do this one. This one is middleweights, Marvin Hagler versus Roy Jones Jr. This one is quite hard to do, to be quite honest. If you look at what you have, on both sides. See, with Roy Jones Jr., what you have is great athleticism with boxing ability, whereas with Marvin Hagler you have great overall skill and superior boxing ability. And if you look closely at Marvin Hagler fights, you see quite a bit of versatility in his arsenal, because he can come out, he can fight southpaw, he can come out, he can fight orthodox, and as well he had great timing, and he uses legs. And his skill is very subtle, and sometimes you wouldn't really notice. If you look closely at his videos, you wouldn't really notice some of the things that he did correctly. See, with Marvin Hagler, when he threw his punches, it was similar to, if you look at Kessler, when he throws his shots, that glove is right back underneath, directly protecting his chin after he throws a punch. That's what Hagler would do. Hagler would come out and have his hands kind of in that same area. Hands were quite level, and he throw his shot, and after he threw the shot, he would pull the hand back to protect his chin, and his chin was always tucked despite catching a lot of crazy shots throughout his career. One significant bout of him catching all kinds of crazy shots was against John the Beast Mugabe, I believe in 1984. When I think about it, I believe it was 84 when he fought John the Beast Mugabe, who knocked out like every opponent that he faced until he fought Hagler, and Hagler beat him. So anyway, Marvin Hagler, one of the greatest middleweight champions of all time, perhaps one of the most skilled boxers of all time. I think his skill level is more superior than most boxers in the history of the sport. I think his skill is very superior, and also his timing. He had very good timing, and there's some fights I've seen him in, and he was able to land some good shots on the inside, good quick shots on the inside, and get out very quickly. On the other hand, you have Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones Jr. at middleweight was much quicker than he was at light heavyweight, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people believe the same way, at middleweight he was much quicker and much faster. I believe his hand speed and his reflexes were a bit faster at middleweight. Though in his prime, at the light heavyweight class, he did have some very good knockouts, and he uses athleticism and his reflexes to his advantage. And that was very smart of him to be able to use boxing ability and athleticism and pretty much fuse them, make a kind of a fusion, fuse them both together, and make up the Roy Jones style, which is a style that you can't teach in any gym, anywhere. That's stuff that it takes a lot of athleticism to do. His reflexes, the type of knockouts that he had, and some of the stuff that he did in the ring, just takes pure athleticism along with boxing ability. So Roy Jones Jr. was the former IBF middleweight champion. I believe he won it in 1993 when he beat Bernard Hopkins. I believe it was 93, and now he's a shell of his former self. Kind of hard to look at it, but he was a great middleweight. He was a great middleweight champion. Didn't unify the belts like he did at light heavyweight, but overall he was. I would have loved to see a fight between him and Gerald McClellan. I believe McClellan beat him in the amateurs. I'll probably do a fantasy matchup for that. But anyway, on to this matchup. This is kind of a hard matchup to call, due to the styles of both fighters, because they both have excellent timing. In the timing department, I would say Roy Jones could win in the timing, in the department of timing, because I believe he was much quicker and not only was he much quicker, but in those shots there was a lot of power, and his hands were very quick. I think his hand speed was a bit quicker, or much quicker than Marvin Hagler's. So based on the quicker hand speed and the quicker reflexes, I would go with Roy Jones Jr. on timing. But as far as boxing ability goes, I'm going to go with Marvin Hagler. I think Marvin Hagler had the better boxing ability. And I mentioned the discipline of how he fought. The gloves being back up, after he threw his shots, how he would kind of cover up. But not only did he cover up, but he used his legs very well. And he made a lot of movements with his legs that, sometimes to get him out of danger. And sometimes would create angles with using his legs, not only with his legs, but with kind of a little bit of lateral movement, or a shoulder movement, actually, shoulder movement. He kind of moved the shoulder over, and he would move the legs, but he would cover up, and it would make it hard for the fighter to kind of open up on him. So in that department, I would go with Marvin Hagler because he had very subtle boxing skills. Power, I'm not too sure about power. Marvin Hagler, I think he was the type of fighter that would think over time, but if you would put him in a dog fight, he will fight you to the death. That's just the style that he had. With Roy Jones wasn't necessarily willing to fight with you to the death. It was pretty much with him in the ring, it was my way, or no way at all. Roy Jones Jr. did a great job of ring generalship. When he, especially in his prime, did a great job of ring generalship, and knew how to use his reflexes and the speed to control his matchups. But Marvin Hagler knew how to time, so he could control the matchups using his timing, and time very well. If you look at a couple of his fights, against some quick opposition, Hagler was actually able to get a couple big uppercuts in, move out, create the space, use angles, and then just go southpaw, go to orthodox, and get his opponents from there. So, and there's a lot more I want to say about this fight. So much to analyze with this fight. And me, I'm going to go with, in this fight, I think this will be a very close fight. I think this will be very close. If you ask me, I think with this fight, this would be somewhat close, similar to I think this could be similar to a Leonard Hagler. I think it could be very similar to that. I believe that if Marvin Hagler comes in at southpaw and changes to orthodox, not too much, but simply fights at southpaw and boxes against Roy Jones, I think that he'll get the victory. And I'm going to go with Marvin Hagler by a unanimous decision in this bout. I think he could go in, and I think he can outbox Roy Jones, which is hard to do. Because when you try to outbox Roy Jones, there's many things that you have to look at. You have to look at athleticism, you have to look at speed, reflexes, and overall power. Speed and power. And those reflexes, set up a lot of those knockouts that Roy Jones had. And Marvin Hagler knew how to move his legs, he knew how to counter, and could time well. And I think he would do a pretty good job of being able to negate the speed with his timing and use his boxing ability to create space so he can get his shots off. So I'm going to go with Marvin Hagler by a unanimous decision. So anyway, that was the distance. Thanks for watching. Peace.